Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today's video is a very special video. It is a little different than what I normally put out. This is a tutorial on how to build a workbench. I built this for my husband for Father's Day and he absolutely loved it, and I thought that I would share it with you guys in a tutorial form to show you how I made it step by step. If you're new to my channel, my name is Barbara and I'm so glad to have you here. I love all things DIY on a budget, whether it's home decor, furniture pieces, thrift hauls, thrift makeovers, anything that I can create for my home or yard on a budget, I love it. So if this is something that you are interested in, if you like this type of content, please hit that subscribe button down below. And once you click on that subscribe button, a little bell will pop up. And if you click on that bell, it will notify you each time I upload a new video. I truly hope you enjoy this video, and I'm very thankful to have you here with me today. So let's get started on this workbench.
The lumber that I picked up at my local lumber yard were some 2x4 by 8 foot. I picked up 13 pieces and I ended up using 12 of those, and I had quite a bit of scrap left over. I also picked up 2 4x8 3/4 inch plywood sheets and 1 4x8 pegboard sheet. I'm going to be cutting down the 2x4s in 3-foot sections, and I need 6 of those. So 6 2x4 by 3 foot, and I'm also going to be cutting down 2 2x4 6 foot long. So these 8 pieces will become the legs for the workbench. And I will show you how I attach those in just a moment. So once you cut down your 4 2x4 by 3 foot pieces and your 2x4 by 6 foot pieces, 2 of those, I'm going to take my Kreg jig. If you don't have a Kreg jig, you can use wood screws, but I fortunately do have a Kreg jig, which I absolutely love. And I have that set on 1.5 inch for the drill bit, as well as the top piece that you set it up to drill your holes into. And the Kreg jig just basically gives you a stronger hold. So I'm going to be drilling in 2 holes in 3 sections of the 2x4 by 3 foot long. So as you see here, I am doing the 2 outer points, which is A and C, and I'm going to do that on both ends and in the middle. I don't go all the way to the end because I want to leave room when I attach my rails so that the screws don't hit each other. So again, you're going to do that for all of the 6 pieces of the 2x4 by 3 foot. So all of them will have the Kreg jig holes in it. So here I have it set up. These are going to be the front legs. And this is how I'm going to attach them. These other 2 3-foot pieces will be attached to the 6-foot long piece, and those will become the back legs. I'm using 2.5 inch Kreg jig pocket hole screws to attach them. And I have a clamp on there holding it together. If you don't have a clamp, just make sure that it is flush and that you screw the pocket hole screws in tightly. But here I am attaching 2 of the 3-foot pieces, and again 2 of the 3-foot pieces together, and these are going to create the 2 front legs for the table. Then I will take a 3-foot piece and attach it to the 6-foot piece. And I will do that for both of them, and that's going to create the back legs for the table. Attaching them the same way with the Kreg jig pocket screws and making sure that it is flush on the ends so that your table will be level and straight. The reason I used 6-foot pieces on the back was because I knew that I wanted to put pegboard on there, and I wanted to have it flush with the back of the table so that my husband could hang up his tools or whatever he wanted to hang up on the pegboard. So here I'm just finishing up that second back leg for the table. And now I am cutting 52.5 inch. I'm going to be cutting 2 of these. This is to attach, and then also, you're going to be cutting 4 25 inch of the 2x4. So you're going to cut 4 of those 25 inches long. These are going to become the side rails. The 25 inches become the 4 side pieces that hold the legs together. And then the 52.5 inch is going to be the back rail that holds the legs together and the top rail. And here I am creating my pocket holes on the very ends of the pieces because I'm going to be attaching them to the legs. So here I'm going to be using A and C again. And I'm going to be creating the pocket holes on both ends on the same side so that I can attach the legs together. And here you see how I've drilled the holes for all of the rails. Now I also, on the rails, am going to be putting in the pocket holes on the sides of some of them. This is so that I can attach the tabletop from underneath so that I don't have screws on the top of the tabletop. I want them to be hidden underneath. And I'm going to be doing that on 2 of the 25 inch 2x4s. And then I'm going to be doing that on 2 of the 52.5 inch for the front and the back rails for the table. And I'll show you shortly how I attach those to the legs. So here I am again just drilling in, and I only use 1 pocket hole 3 times on the longer boards and then just 2 on the shorter boards, just so that I can attach that tabletop. So here you just see that I do a single pocket hole in 3 separate sections. Now I have the legs laying on the floor. This is the back. So that's the bottom of a back leg. And then there's the other back leg. And that is the 52.5 inch rail piece that I'm going to be attaching to the 3-foot section on the back leg. So I'm just going to be drilling that in and making sure that those pocket holes that I have screwed in for the tabletop are facing the correct way. And this is the front of the legs. Same process. You want to have the legs laid out for the front and going to be attaching the same long piece to the front of the legs. Now I made a boo-boo right there, but I'll show you later how I fixed it. I did not have that leg upright. So just make sure that the top piece is flush because you want your tabletop to sit flush on there. And then just screw those screws in. Like I said, if you don't have a Kreg jig, you could actually do this by screwing the screws from the outside of the boards. And then I'm doing that for all 4 sections. Now, this is how the side pieces. This is what's going to connect the back legs to the front legs. So I just make sure that it's flush. And this is the 25 inch piece. And it's going to be connecting again the back legs to the front legs. So I begin by drilling in the side on the back and the same length piece on the other side on the back. Then I'm going to set all the legs up, and this is the front piece, the piece I just drilled in, that's going to be to the front. So basically I'm standing inside the table right now showing you that these are the pieces. That's the back I've already drilled in on the back leg. So that's a side piece that needs to be drilled in right here. We're going to pull that up, make sure it's flush, and drill it in through those holes. And then also on the other side, drilling in right here where the clamp is to the front leg, making sure it's flush, And this is how it looks once you attach all those top rails. Note, the right side leg is on wrong, but I will fix that. I just haven't discovered it yet. Now I am attaching those 25-inch bottom pieces. What I did was I measured from the top of the leg, the 3-foot piece, I went 2 foot down and I made a mark. And then I'm going to be attaching those on there using my level to make sure they're level, because I'm going to be making a shelf on this bottom rail. And I wanted to make sure they were all the same height so the shelf will be level. And once I get those attached securely, I'm going to be cutting 48 3/4 inch. And then I also use the Kreg jig on the ends so that I can attach this piece. And I actually cut 2 of those because that is going to become the top of the back legs. Right here is where I'm going to attach it. So it's actually going to be the top of the back. And then it's also going to be the rail on the back on the bottom. So once I figure out how I can get this on here by myself, I take that clamp, secure it, make sure it's good and level at the top, and drill those in to the back legs. Here I'm measuring 2 foot down again to make sure that it is going to be level when I put the shelf in. And I'm taking that second piece that I had just cut and attaching it in the same way. Now I'm going to cut 52.5 inch. This is going to be the front part of the shelf. So I measured the depth that I wanted it to be recessed, and I marked the side rails so that I would make sure that it was level going across, and then I attached that on those side pieces. Now I'm going to be cutting the top, and I measured the top piece. So it was, I believe it just showed 57.5. But I'm just going to be cutting the 3/4 inch plywood down to the correct length of the table. And now 34.5 is the depth that I have on the table. So I just use my chalk line, mark that out, cut it down to the depth. And then once I'm finished cutting this, I'm going to set it on top of the tabletop, on top of the workbench, and this becomes the tabletop. Now, I finally realize I have this right leg over here on the screen on wrong. The seam should not be in the front. It should be a complete 2x4, just like the matching on the other side. So I basically just take those Kreg Jig screws out, flip it upside down, reattach them back in. Very simple, very easy fix. The pocket hole screws will still be a good strong fit. So it was just a very easy fix for this. So here I'm just going to make sure that it is flush at the top again, reattaching it in the correct position because I wanted the full 2x4 in the front and the seams on the side. And of course the way I determined that is when I measured. When I placed my top on there, it was quite a bit off. That side was sticking out further than the other side. So once I get that on there and get everything flush, and I again make sure everything is level because I want that bottom shelf to sit level. And I just reattach everything. And again, this is just something that I kind of drew on a piece of paper and just kind of planned it out in my head. Drew it out, and then I kind of just measured as I went. I had an idea of about how big I wanted the workbench to be, but I had to measure out as I went. Now, again, 55.5 inch. This is the bottom length of the bottom shelf for the table, so I'm going to cut that down. And then once I get that cut down to size, I am going to cut down the depth that I want the shelf. And again, you'll have to take measurements yourself because like I said, I was measuring as I went along to make sure everything fit flush. And here I knew I had to notch out those back legs so that it would sit flush. So I just took measurements around those 2x4s and drew it out on my plywood. And then I'm going to use the skill saw and a hand saw to cut those notches out. So I just use my skill saw till I get almost to the edge, but I don't want to go all the way through the edge because I don't want it to leave like a, because it cuts like an indentation. So I'm going to use the hand saw to finish cutting those out, and I'm going to do that for both sides. I will have a list of all the measurements in the description box down below, but once again, as you're doing it, make sure you measure twice and cut once. That way, if you're a little off and you take the measurement, you can cut it to the proper size. You can always cut a little more off, but you can't add it back on. So now I'm just going to finish this up with the hand saw and add this bottom shelf on. And you have to go around to the back. Make sure you lift that plywood up so that it goes over the back of the 2x4 rail that we have in the back. So once I get that up, I take a little block of wood because I didn't want to damage my plywood down there, and just tap that in and then tap the top to make sure it's down. I'm going to use 1.5 inch pocket hole screws for the Kreg jig again. I measured and made sure my top was the proper inches off of each side because I believe I had about 1 inch overhang on each side and the front. And now I am just drilling those 1.5 inch pocket hole screws into those pre-drilled holes that I put in there, attaching the top to all of the rails. Now I did use wood screws on the bottom shelf because it was okay that I was putting screws on the bottom shelf because he's going to use that as just storage, but I didn't want the screws at the top shelf because I wanted that to be free and clear for whatever he was working on. So I used 2-inch wood screws, pre-drilled all my holes, and then I'm just drilling the screws in to attach the bottom shelf top to that bottom shelf. And now I'm going to be cutting down my pegboard, same 55.5 inch length. I'm going to cut this down with a skill saw. And then once I get my length down, I will measure my width and cut the width down. And again, I'll have that measurement in the description box below. So once I get that cut down, I use 1.25 inch wood screws to attach this to the back. And I'm just going to clamp that down in place, make sure it's flush and exactly where I want it. I'm going to pre-drill 3 holes on each side and 3 holes at the top rail. Now once I got this on there and screwed my screws in, I thought that I should really put a support piece on the back so that the pegboard would not bow in and out as he hung tools up there. So I just screwed in a small portion of one of the scrap pieces that was left over in the bottom, and you'll see that in the next clip here. Right here I am cutting down the measurement between the little block that I added to the back. Again, using my Kreg jig to put in those pocket holes. There's the block. That's how I'm going to attach it to make sure it's flush with the top piece, just to give that pegboard some added support. I'm also going to go around in the front, and I'm going to pre-drill the holes to that 2x4 and add 3 screws to that just to secure it. I later do go in and add 2 more braces under the tabletop, which I cut down. I went under and measured those, pre-drilled the holes, just in case my husband decided to put something extra heavy on there. I wanted to make sure he had the support under the table. And here it is completed, and I think it turned out absolutely beautiful. I love the way this came out, and he was so thrilled to get this for Father's Day. Here it is after he started organizing. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked this video, please give me a big thumbs up and let me know in the comments down below how I did. And please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you guys.